Hello, hello, everyone. Are we live? I think we're live. How's it going, guys? Having some technical difficulties. Sorry about that. So we're starting a little bit late. Oh man, where to start? More IRL streams. Just as an FYI for folks, this is I don't want to say it's the new normal, but we're going to be doing more of these. Hey, Nani, what's going on? Cool. All right. Let's see if that eventually pops up with our chatbot. I got our chatbot to work, but it's taking an inordinate amount of time to pop up on my screen. Like that was like a good like 5 second delay. I don't know why, but that's how I've got it to work right now. So just bear with me. Yeah, guys. So just so you know, I'll try to label clearly any videos or anything else that we're talking about, not games. But I don't know. This might just, like I said, it might just be the new normal that we're talking about this stuff. A couple of things I wanted to talk about today. I'm not exactly sure where to start. One of the things I do actually know where I want to start because it's also delayed on your end. Yeah, yeah. I unfortunately I don't know. At least it's kind of working, so we're just gonna have to roll with it. I'm sorry about that. I'll try to keep working on it. I just updated my chat bot, and it something is not right because it's not working. I assume it's going through some unnecessary extra steps or something like that. So yeah, we'll just see. 15 seconds. Okay, Jesus. Well, I'm sorry about that. I can double check the stream settings here too. Yeah, we're at ultra low latency on the stream, which is what I always have it on YouTube. Um, just unfortunate. Well, yeah, I want to talk about something. So when the recent shooting of Renee Good, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, and obviously it's been in the news and what have you. I haven't heard enough people talk about this, so I wanted to kind of point it out. I think with this stuff, if you want to have an opinion, one side or the other, it's pretty easy to do that, right? Like if you want to have an opinion, and this is kind of everything on the internet nowadays. Like if you just want to believe something, just type that in, right? Like I mean, it's pretty. Here, let's try it out. Let me see. Hold on. Oh, wait. What's going on with my keyboard? Okay? I thought I was in like Spanish keyboard or something. Um, Aliens landed on the moon. There we go. We'll put that in quotes too. And we can probably find. Oh, what the hell, DuckDuckGo? This is garbage. Hold on. Let's go to Google. Google won't let me down. Uh, Google, come on, man. And we could probably find, some stuff about aliens having landed on the moon, I mean, here we go. We've got some images. Oh, these are great. Look, it was actually aliens who were on the moon. If you look for stuff on the internet and you have the bias of what you want to find, you can find it. So one of the things with the recent shooting of Renee is that that a lot of people are saying, well, she was in front of the vehicle and she hit the cop and she was moving towards him, so it was a justified shooting. And I mentioned to you guys that in general, like all police officers, there's about 17,500 different police uh, departments, including sheriffs and state, however those divided up in the U.S. at least of like 2018, and I'm going to tell you that pretty much all of them would have said that was totally fine. He was in front of the vehicle, but whenever you turns out that the customs CB Customs and Border Patrol CBP is that right? That they ask someone to look into their policies and procedures and kind of review some stuff, and they actually had an outside firm do it and then give them the report, tell them what's going on. I'm trying to blow this up a little bit. And this is back in February of 2013. And if you're like, if you're like Night Horror, where is your source? This is from Customs and Border Patrol. This is from them. Okay, this particular thing is actually by the independent nonprofit that they asked to look into it. That's where it's published from, but you can find this link on CBP on their website. Okay, and if you scroll down a little bit, it's not actually that long for one of these things, to be totally honest with you. One of the things that um, they find in here is that, and I'll have to find it just by looking it up. Um, One of the things they found is that CBP agents seem to have a habit of standing in front of vehicles in order to justify lethal force. That's what their own that's what their own research has told them what officers were doing. And with that, whole thing with Renee, like, the whole thing that happened, right? Like, it's like, okay, officer was in the front of the vehicle. First of all, it's pretty stupid to be standing in front of a vehicle if you think someone actually has hostile intent. And this is a guy who did get hit by a car and drug, I believe, previously, and it's someone who also was working, I believe, for CBP during the period where this came out. And so, not standing in front of a vehicle if you're actually worried about it. And I mean, if you've seen the video right before it, literally seconds before she shot and killed, she says, "I'm not mad at you." She tells the guy, and she seems very calm, very, pleasant, right? It's not someone who's going to suddenly turn their vehicle into a road rage machine. And, the second thing there is also not shooting at moving vehicles. This is, again, just about anybody who has a policy or who's ever thought about this, and I'm talking about police departments and what have you, has a policy of not shooting into moving vehicles, because if you hit the driver and you incapacitate or kill them, then what's going to happen is that now you have a uncontrolled 2,000-pound vehicle that's just careening out of control, which is exactly what happened when we saw it there. So, this is one of those things. I'm trying to find exactly where it's at. This is one of those things whenever you look at it and you go, yeah, this was justified. They were in front of the vehicle. Like, I could see a world where I could be talked into thinking that, yeah, she was in front of the vehicle. It makes sense for him to have shot at her, but then realizing that, hey, there's actually been some issues with this where Customs and Border Patrol agents are actively, they're standing in front of vehicles so they have an excuse to use lethal force. And then when you hear that, you're like, wow, okay. And then when you see that how she was acting beforehand, and then you see how he reacted right afterwards, right, calling her a fucking bitch, and his words, not mine. And then you go, well, you know what? And then you look at what are the officer training, right? Like, what is this guy, trained to do? What should he do? First off, you shouldn't be standing in front of a vehicle. You're not going to stop it. The other thing is, if you've ever been stopped by a police officer and you've ever pulled in somewhere, you probably notice that they will pull in like right behind you. And the reason for that is they're trying to block you in so you can't go anywhere. If they wanted to stop her vehicle, the proper thing to do would be to block her in. I would also note that Customs and Border Patrol, most of these things, there's like a handful of vehicles. They're using little rental cars in a lot of cases, but they have very few vehicles, and none of them are equipped with lights and sirens or anything else that would indicate that they're actually police. And to go along with this, so this is a report. You can find this here. I can link it for you guys actually. There we go. If you want to look at it for yourself, but this is the report, and they I should find the exact part here so we can read it for everybody though. Hold on, let me just do that real quick. Yeah, so 2 policy and practice areas especially need significant change. First, officers, agents should be prohibited from shooting at vehicles unless vehicle occupants are attempting to use deadly force other than the vehicle against the agent. Training and tactics should be focused on avoiding positions that put agents in the path of a vehicle and getting out of the way of moving vehicles. Second, officer agents should be prohibited from using deadly force against subjects, throwing objects not capable of causing serious physical injury or death to them. Yeah. And then they go on. And, one of the things that I learned in the military with a lot of this stuff is that, you kind of expect the lowest person on the ladder to like not be incredibly intelligent, and there's really no other nice way to say it. And one of the things that you find is when there is an issue, you don't necessarily blame the lowest person on the ladder. Like, yeah, shit rolls downhill. That does happen. But one of the things you do is you blame the person above them who's actually responsible for their training. and that's the person who should really be to blame. And I would point out that we know that, Customs and Border Patrol right now, first of all, they lowered their standards. They're incredibly low, but they're also like not training these people, right? They have very, very little training. And with that, they have very little training. And, you know, if you're not competent enough to do your job, then maybe you shouldn't be trying to do that job, is essentially what it is. There's no reason, nothing emergent happened, right? There was no terrorist attack by anybody that would cause us to suddenly be panicked and think yesterday we need to get every single illegal immigrant, out of the country. Nothing like that has happened. We haven't seen that. That's just not what's going on. And so there's nothing that would create an emergency where we would then cause us to have more issues. And, I think when it comes to it, really, I mean, I think this kind of is the point, that they are untrained and that this was bound to happen. And that really is part of the goal of what was, of all of this happening. Let me see here. Let me see. So restriction from shooting at vehicles, because it explained that the shooting at vehicles pose a high risk to agents and innocent bystanders should be avoided. Let me see here. Shooting at rock throwers. I thought it was like right here. Yeah. Again, if you have someone who's driving into a crowd or something like that and you shoot and kill them, here we go. So likewise, agents should be trained to get out of the way of oncoming vehicles as opposed to intentionally assuming a position in the path of the vehicle. And I think it says this somewhere else. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but that's what was happening, right? So this was observed to be happening. All right. Another thing I hear from people is quite often is like, oh, it's the bad apple thing, right? Like we've heard the bad apple, justification quite a bit. I just want to point out this is from like 2009. And again, this is from justice.org. This is from the Justice Department, or I'm sorry, justice.gov. So this is a government website, right? And I think this is from like 2009 during the Obama administration. And this is the, police reform and accountability accomplishments. Here they talk about, since the start of the administration, the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has opened 22 investigations into police departments. And, in the first 5 fiscal years during this time. What's up, dumpster fire? I like it. Yeah, and so there's 22, and they talk about them. These consent decrees, which is basically the government threatening to sue local police departments if they don't, comply because of. They're threatening to sue them over civil rights violation. So these are American citizens who are having their civil rights violated. And again, we hear all the time about how it's just a few bad apples. But if you actually read this report, they note here that there are a couple of places that they investigated in the past 6 years at this time that did not turn out to actually have what they found to be some systemic and institutional, violation of people's civil rights. There's 5 of them. They found 5. So 27 investigations, and 5 of them were found to not be violating people's civil rights. That is less than 20%. So 80% of the police departments that they investigated, they had issues. There were systemic problems with violating people's constitutional rights. What up, Brian? What's going on, man? Again, I apologize, guys. The chat is super delayed today. So, this idea that it's a few bad apples, again, I don't really think it is. I don't think the fault, I don't blame the lowest person on the totem pole, but this stuff is systemic, and it comes from up top. And to give another like really good example of this, and I don't think I'm going to be able to find a YouTube video. I looked so hard and I couldn't find the body cam footage. Guys, this is how much I've been looking at this stuff. I know the guy's name, Stephen Mater. So this guy, sure, we'll look at the ProPublica thing. So this was a guy who was a Marine who got out. I don't think I kind of wanted a picture of him. Can we get a picture of this guy? I mean, here's some pictures here. We'll pull that up. ACLU did some stuff on him. But yeah, so the guy here, we'll pull up this is a good pick. Come on, DuckDuckGo. Are we all right? There we go. Oh, it's pretty small. This is a guy who he was a Marine. He got out of the Marines. He still wanted to serve his country, and he became a police officer in his hometown, I believe, or near his hometown. And there was a call. This other gentleman here, the African American gentleman, his girlfriend called the 911, and she said that her boyfriend was essentially suicidal, and then he took a gun, but he didn't have it. There was no magazine in it, and he was suicidal and whatever. The 911 caller, she gave him some other info. The 911 caller did not pass on any of that info. All the 911 caller passed on was like, be wary of firearms, and that there was a call. So this guy shows up. This is, I think, 2016-ish, 18, 16, somewhere in there. And he shows up on the scene, and he pulls up. I've seen the video. I couldn't find it to save my life, so I'm not going to look for it now. And he pulls up, and there's a guy standing by the road, and he's like, "Hey, man, I'm looking for this address." And he's like, "Yeah, that's here." So he doesn't even know. He pulls up to the guy. He doesn't even know that it's him. He has one or both of his hands behind his back at one point. I don't recall exactly. I think he got out of his vehicle. He stopped, I think, and got out of his vehicle, if I recall correctly. But he's talking to this guy, and at one point he asks to see his hands, and the guy doesn't want to show him his hands, and he's like, "Hey, man," he keeps asking him, keeping relatively calm. And eventually the guy does show that he has a gun. And he's talking to this guy, and at some point he says something that makes it very clear that this dude is having a mental health crisis, at least to Steven here. And I think he drew his gun. I don't recall exactly. I wish I could find the video. But he didn't see this guy as a threat. Sure, he had a gun, but he didn't need to shoot him. And two other police officers then arrived on the scene. And he's talking to this guy, and these cops arrive, and they're screaming. They're both screaming at him, which is, if you've ever seen police videos or been in this situation, this happens all the time. You got 5 cops yelling 5 different things. One of them saying, "Get down." The other one saying, "Put your hands up," "on your knees," "on your stomach," "turn around," like conflicting stuff all the time. And this is why people who are like, "Oh, you just got to listen to police." This is what happens, because none of these idiots know what they're doing. And so they're because they're not trained, apparently. And so they're yelling and screaming, escalating instead of de-escalating. And then at one point, and I'm sorry, I don't know this gentleman's name. I don't recall, just off the top of my head. He starts pointing a gun around because he's trying to commit suicide by cop because he's having a mental health crisis. And sure enough, the 2 cops that just arrived, yeah, Dr. Dante, man, ESO a little bit later on, man, a little bit later on. Sorry, man, if that was confusing for you. And they shoot him, they kill him. One of them ends up shooting him in the head. Okay, now this was a bad situation, and Steve had even said that he understands that it was justifiable, that the other officers shot him or whatever. Remember, it's just a few bad apples, right? So what did they do to this American veteran, this hero? What did they do to him, who was trying to de-escalate the situation and do the right thing? They fired him. They fired him for not shooting. Now, at some point later, they said, "Oh, it's because of other things," or blah blah blah. But they fired him because he didn't shoot a black man, is what it was. That's why they fired him. The police would, that department would rather him be hot-headed and whatever. And I looked into this some. I looked into this some because I was like, this is really interesting. And I wonder, and it turns out that there seems to be a pattern, but I don't know if there's any research, people are suggesting that maybe research should be done. But apparently this is a pattern with military personnel, that whenever that they make apparently ideal, a lot of long-term officers and whatever will say that they make ideal ideal police officers because they can evaluate it. They seem to be, first off, they stay calm. They evaluate the situation. They do a better job of threat assessment, and then a handful of other things. This is a bit anecdotal, but it does seem to be true. Hey, what's up, Buddha? What's going on, man? So again, we're painting a picture here, guys. We're painting a picture. So we have situations where we know the police aren't doing the right thing. They don't seem to be very well trained and what have you. And then when you have someone who does the right thing, who is better trained, and has had, because obviously military training, a lot of that will transfer over. I know when I was a medic in the military, for example, I had training on how to deal with this kind of stuff. Someone who might be suicidal, and these various scenarios similar to this. And I remember, that was part of my training with sergeants. Like, what do you do if you come up to the situation? What if they're hostile to you? What if they're threatening to hurt someone else? Like, how do you handle that situation? And we had to role play those situations. I worked at a hospital. I wasn't going to get, the chances of that happening were very small, but it was just part of like the continual education, right? And as I mentioned, having to pull guard duty, where this was right after 9/11, and right after 9/11, right? Security's real fucking high. And it's like, if anybody charges the gate, shoot them, right? Like, that's what you do. And we had people that were very upset about the U.S. being there at the time, and they would drive around. There was a couple of usual suspects that we had their name and whatever, and would do various things. Sometimes in the past, I think they had like thrown stuff at people and what have you. That never happened to me, but they never been shot, right? Even though they had done that. What's up, boss? So I think if you kind of we see that, like, hey. And this stuff is 2009, 2013. You can find stuff that's more recent, that there are, we've done research. We know that there's problems. We've done investigation. We know that there's issues. And, again, 80%, over 80% of the departments that were investigated were found to be, violating people's civil rights. This isn't a one-off thing. And then we also have, when you have good police officers, I would say great police officers, that are, at one point he says to him, "I don't want to shoot you, brother." He doesn't say, "Fuck you, bitch," right? He says, "I don't want to shoot you, brother," right? So this is, and again, this was a guy who was calm, and he said later on that, like, no matter what happened, I was going home to my family that night. In other words, he was willing to kill this guy if he needed to. He didn't feel like he needed to. And then other officers arrive, escalate the situation, and it leads to someone's death. And then that officer gets fired. And he got fired for not shooting the guy sooner, right? And just completely unnecessary. And you look at this and you go, man, it really seems like the system is broken. It really seems like this is systemic. It really seems like something should be done to fix this. And you know what? Something has been being done to fix this. It has been being done. Until Trump and his Department of Justice, I guess I should move over to the other side, they froze all police policy reform work. This is from April of just last year. They froze it all. All of these, so some, if you look at this is again from 2009, but some of these police departments wanted and were working and wanted to work with the U.S. government, or federal government rather, to deal with these issues and to try to address them, because a lot of it's entrenched. And you have police unions. Police unions can be pretty horrible. They'll have officers that'll get fired for something, and they'll want to make sure that they can be rehired. Oftentimes they'll get them rehired back. There's even been situations where the police department wanted to fire somebody, and the police union negotiated so the person didn't get fired, who've done fairly egregious things, shown that they're not fit for the job. And you know what? One of the things, when I was in the military, and this is everybody, whenever you join the military, there's something called failure to adapt. And I forget what the code is, but a failure to adapt is when within the first year that you're in the U.S. military, if it's just not working out, you can't handle the exercise routine, you're not mentally, you don't seem to be doing very well, you can't handle it, any number of things. And they put you out, and they put you out on a failure to adapt. And you're not dishonorably discharged. You're not honorably discharged. It's like you were never in the military for the most part. And it's like, hey, you just weren't able to adapt to what you needed to do to be in the military, right? No harm, no foul, generally speaking. There is some abuse of that, but they just kicked you out. Like where I was at, if they were going to kick you out on a failure to adapt and you had done something egregious or whatever, they would, or you were like clearly just trying to get kicked out, they would actually keep you there and make sure everybody knew that you were being kept there up to like 364 days. And then they would kick you out on failure to adapt. Oh, I don't even know if I think it was that long, because they were trying to show people that like, hey, if you just quit now, you're not just going to get to go home. A little bit of an abuse of the system. But these police officers, if they're not able to do the job, it doesn't need to be the end of the world, right? But a lot of these guys that we've seen this over and over again are really bad at their job. They don't seem to be able to handle the stress of the job, and then and some of them are actively corrupt, and they get bounced from police department to police department. Some of them have domestic abuse. I mean, this stuff is rampant. And again, when people say it's one bad apple, remember that 80% of the departments that are investigated in the US have found to be violating people's civil rights. Okay. Pretty egregious. Okay. And then you have Trump stopping the police reform work from happening. And this includes, and this has been happening with, in Minneapolis, which is also just such a random place for this to be happening. Criticizing someone for calling someone a bitch after they get hit them with their car is crazy. Tone policing is not even a strong enough word. There needs to be a new term for this. Yeah, I've already gone to this CMT. I've already gone through how, it's already known that these guys, for those who missed the first part of the video, CBP in 2013 had they asked for, this is from a government website. This is actually an organization, but you can find this link on CBP's website. And they asked them to investigate them, and they found that there was a couple of problems. One is shooting at moving vehicles, which you shouldn't do because it's stupid. And then they also found that they were standing in front of vehicles so that they would have an excuse to use lethal force. And this is CBP. This is the report that they got back when they asked an independent third party to look into them. So, it's again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'll just rehash a little bit here because it seems like we need to. If you go into that, if you want to look at the Renee Good shooting and you want to look at it and say, if you want to believe one of these things, if you want to believe that it was justified, absolutely. You can find stuff that, and this goes with anything. It doesn't matter what it is. If you want to believe that the ICE is doing great things in Minneapolis right now, you can find things that will support your point of view. And if you don't want to believe that, you can also find things that support that view. The question is, what is actually going on, and are you brave enough as a person to look at things objectively, realizing that it might challenge your worldview? And that's really the question that you have to ask. And as I mentioned, and I mentioned this earlier in the week, that according to if you ask the 17,500-ish departments across the U.S. if this was a justified shooting, almost ubiquitously, they would say yes. Okay. And the reason is because, like you said, someone's in front of the car, she's moving forward, you can shoot them. Now, we could look at footage of ICE in California where they drove into a crowd moving at a high rate of speed. We can look at that footage and go, that's what it looks like to drive into a crowd. And we can see that, this officer had been hit and drugged before. So maybe don't stand in front of a fucking vehicle. That's basic tactics. Any police officer should know that. And then when you say, not only should he know not to stand in front of the vehicle, plus he's been dragged by one, there's also been reports, from Customs and Border Patrol, their own investigation that says, hey, people are standing in front of vehicles as justification to use lethal force, then it starts to look a little bit different, right? Now, we could argue about this, but the main thing I think is we can all agree on is that, in the US, when it seems like there's something wrong, when it seems like a crime has been committed, what you do is you charge someone, right? And then you let the a trial happen, or you let the courts decide what's going to happen. And I think that is what should happen here. Was this justified? Was it not justified? I mean, if you want to look at all the different things, I mean, certainly, I think one of the things we can agree on, because I think we can all agree on, is that he didn't need to shoot her. Was it justified? Could he have? Maybe it's justified, but he didn't need to. He didn't need to at all. And it really, there's a lot of things that point to he wanted to. I get standing in front of a vehicle is probably not the best idea, but that was a police violation, not a crime. A policy violation, not a crime. Vehicular homicide is a crime, which did not happen. He fired the second 2 shots as she was driving away, and you shouldn't fire at a vehicle that's moving. We've also went over that already. No police department, federal or local, will tell you should shoot at a moving vehicle. You just shouldn't do that. It's not a good idea. And this guy has already been hit before by a car. So again, you would think you would know quite well. And when you find out that, CBP is like, this is a, Customs and Border Patrol, this is a habit of theirs, to stand in front of vehicles as justification, I think it warrants charges and an investigation. Not saying it should go one way or the other, but I think it warrants charges and an investigation. Yeah. She didn't need to try to run him over. I don't think she was trying to run him over. I think you're assigning motive there. I think she was trying to get away. Yeah. So I get, Voss Boss, you had a lot of comments, man. I went back and looked, man, and I think I'd like to have more of this conversation with you. So I get what you're saying, CMT, and I do think that there are issues with the feds in terms of policy, but could it not be a reaction to the failure of local government to follow the laws as well? How so, Voss Boss? How so? I'm not assigning motive. I'm rage baiting. There's a difference. Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. The transparency there is greatly appreciated. Yeah, Voss Boss, on a lot of these things, you had mentioned in the previous stream that you'd kind of disagree with me stuff. You thought maybe I wasn't offering the arguments in the best light, maybe, or what have you. And I look back and I'm like, no, I think I am presenting them, quite well. Yeah, well, that's what a jury does on crimes, CMT. That's what a jury does, man. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And that's what we all do, man. So, yeah, it wasn't questioning this officer in the moment. Yeah. All right. So, we've kind of gone through this. I don't need to go back through it for the few people that joined late. I think I've said everything, but these stopping of dealing with civil rights cases is quite a problem. And I think if you really look at it too, if you really look at the totality of what's going on, people say it's about, I mean, actually, yeah, I don't know, CMT, you're here, man. Maybe drop some science on us, right? It's about the rule of law, right? It's about people respecting law enforcement. The thing is that we know that ICE has been violating the law rampantly. They've deported U.S. citizens. I think the count was over 100, but we're not really sure how many because ICE doesn't seem to keep very good records, and it was hard to tell. So over 100 U.S. citizens in the last couple of years that have been deported, U.S. citizens being deported. They are picking up U.S. citizens. They've also, with the Supreme Court in September, I think it was September 8th, decided that now it's okay to discriminate on people based on their ethnicity, so that ICE can go up and they can, oh my gosh, what a troll. What a troll. All right, man. I think just gonna, oh man. Um, Successfully trolled. It's kind of funny. Um, so when I said that last stream, the basis of my criticisms were more so pointed to the premise of your state being, for lack of a better term, loaded. I genuinely didn't think you were lying. Oh, I know, Voss. I just look back at it and I'm like, no, I really strongly support everything I said, and I don't think that I was misrepresenting or whatever. And so, but you thought I was, and I was like, I think we could have a conversation about that and come to some sort of agreement, and some sort of not agreement, but understanding. Nani says, I remember when 9/11 was I'm sorry, I remember when 911 was in development, it was billed as a place to call for all emergency services, i.e., medical, mental, and criminal. It was so police were not going into places where they were not trained for. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I, again, Voss, yeah, when I look back, I was like, I think these are how this would be presented by right leaning people. That's most of my family, just FYI. Yeah. So whenever we look at what ICE has been doing, guys, so again, let's go back to like the September thing. Do I have anything about that up here? I don't know if I do. Is this from September? No, this is about civil rights. Um, Yeah, so the Supreme Court in September 8th is like I said, don't quote me on that, but they decided that it was okay for they decided it was okay for the ICE and Customs and Border Patrol to stop people for no other reason than their ethnicity, what they look like, what they sound like, um, anything else with their ethnicity, which essentially means, not essentially, what that means is that um, apparently, and this is also really confusing to me, I'm a first class citizen as a white dude. And then anybody who's not a white dude or anybody who has an accent that is not from the US, I guess, they're a second class citizen because they're able, we're supposed to be protected from unlawful searches and seizures. From we shouldn't, is this Nazi Germany? We now have the Gestapo that can go and stop people because of the way they look, and they can decide who is a citizen or who isn't a citizen, is or isn't. And you know, this is just insane to me that everybody seems to be okay with this too. The idea that you wouldn't be free to move around. And then if they do stop you, what if you don't have your ID? Well, if you're me, I'm a first class citizen, so I don't have to have an ID. No one's going to snatch me up, throw me in an unmarked car with a bunch of, masked agents that we don't even know if working for the government, and take me to some facility. And then these ICE facilities as well are horrible, horrible conditions. One toilet open in an open room with 50 to 70 guys, not being had a chance to shower, not having a chance to, not having a chance to shower, not having a chance to like even watch pepper spray off of their faces. Like it's absolutely crazy. And the other thing about it is they're snatching, like I said, U.S. citizens, right? Which what the fuck is ICE doing with U.S. citizens, right? Like they have no reason, right? But then they're stopping people and asking them for their papers, right? Asking them to somehow prove, and then even when they are U.S. citizens or they are here legally, they're still snatching people up if they have a strong enough accent or if they look brown enough, I guess. Guys, there are one tribe says the ICE has 70 of their people. Native American tribe. Where the fuck is ICE deporting the Native Americans to? I would like to know that. That's insane, right? It's absolutely insane. And all these people that are like, "Oh no, they're just doing good work or whatever," you know, they're grabbing people off of the street that are U.S. citizens. Yeah, Nani's pointing out not just U.S. citizens, but also children. Yeah, there's 15, 16, 17-year-olds and younger being grabbed. And I point out the 15, 16, and 17-year-olds because I've seen videos of them being tackled by ICE agents. There's 4 guys that are my size or larger, most of them a lot fatter. I saw one dude that was at least 300 pounds, had a kid. He was on the kid's back with him in a chokehold. And the kid probably weighed $150. Okay. If that, soaking wet. Guys, if someone weighs 150 and they're not a professional MMA fighter, I can grab their arms and hold them by their side and they can't do anything. Okay. There's no reason for that to happen, but the cruelty is the point. And so, for all the people saying, "Oh, it's just about the laws and the regulate," people should obey the law. People should do what the police say. There are people that are doing everything the police say, and the police are the ones breaking the law. ICE is the ones breaking the law. ICE has ignored judges who have told them, these people, do not send them out of the state. And ICE continually, this is one of their methods, is they'll move people from place to place so that they can't get a lawyer, so that they can't get taken care of, and then they'll deport them. There's even judges who said, "Hey, there's a stay on this. Do not deport this person. We need to have hearings. Justice needs to be served. We have a judicial system," and they'll just deport them. And that's what's going on. I mean, I think this week in Minneapolis, there was a family who had their door rammed in, and like 6 or 7 agents came in and arrested people, and they didn't have a warrant. The Constitution, all these same people that are like law and order. What about the Constitution, right? What about the protection against unlawful searches and seizures? What's going on with that? I also want to show you something else, because I think this is pretty powerful too. It's funny with some of this stuff. Like, I know. Sorry, I got to look it up on my phone because I don't have a way to get it over, because we're just gonna have to Google it. But I know that there are a lot of people who are like, "This is crazy." I know this is crazy, and I know it's ignorant. I used to be this crazy person, this ignorant person. For some of us, hearing like, "Oh, the U.S., like, oh, we're discriminating against people. Oh, we're violating their constitutional rights," is news. Because I grew up in a place, and I grew up, with this idea that like America, we were always the good guys, right? And I was not very well educated, right? I grew up in Texas, where we were taught that the Civil War was about states' rights and not slavery, which is not at all true. And there are some people that are aware of the civil rights movement and what has gone on, and the idea that the U.S. would discriminate against people based on their color, post-slavery, post black people being considered equal citizens and having the right to vote is insane to them. But even since then, we've always done this stuff. This is not all news by any means. All right, let me look like I'm just gonna. There you go. We'll see if it comes up. I bet it does. Yeah, we're gonna watch this. Let me catch up on the chat real quick, and then we'll go from there. There's a couple of you guys who've told me you're trolling, so I'm just ignoring you. What's up, Mob Boss? Let me see here. Yeah. Okay, so if I'm understanding, if you're a citizen, the U.S. citizens are getting caught in the crossfire. So, well, it's a little bit more than that. I would probably word it a little bit different. So if it's a perfect world, if they were only getting illegals, would it be okay? Boss, if they were obeying the law, I would have a different argument, and I do feel this way. We need to change these laws. But these guys, they're not obeying the law. So a lot of these people are, and some of them from Venezuela and other places, are here legally. So if you come to the U.S., if you're in the U.S. and you file an asylum claim, you are here legally. You are allowed to do that, okay? You were allowed to do that. And so there's a lot of people, and this has been going on since Trump took office. I don't remember if it happened the first time. Certainly not as bad, but they're here legally. And so, the ICE, agents asking, what they'll do is that they were doing, and I think they're still doing, is they'll go into courtrooms. They will say, "Oh, we want to drop the charges against this person because they can't extradite him. They can't kick him out of the country while the court is like they're going through the legal process." So they say, "We'll drop that," and then they just grab them and physically take them out of the country. That is not how the judicial system is supposed to be working. Do it morally. How do I feel about it? I'm not sure like which like part of that question you really want to ask, because like if you're asking about like I would like them to just minimally obey the law. It's kind of insane when the federal government is violating the law and is continuing to do so, and that's what's happening. I think we'd all agree that we would like people here here illegally that are committing crimes to be deported. However, we need to fix our immigration system so people can come here under the law. Yeah, we have data that shows that immigrants, legal or illegal, like they commit crimes at a lower rate than U.S. citizens. Like we know that. We have a lot of data on that, and the reason is because they don't want to get deported. It's an executive exclusive power to manage immigration. Yeah, no, that you still have to follow laws. There's still laws. The president just doesn't get to do whatever the fuck he wants. No, that's not, you know, that's not really, um, no, that's not really a thing. Um, yeah, so I want to take a look at this.
You know, I'm getting a little hot on this issue here. People question my patriotism, that I don't look American enough. They could not get over this face. I want to show.
So he has an accent. He doesn't look like me, right? Is this someone that should have to stop and show his papers? And should you in America have to like stop and show your papers?
You something. I want to tell you, because I'm not afraid. I don't have to live in fear, intimidation, or insults. I'm 69 years old, and I'm going to show you what patriotism, the questions about patriotism looks like. Here is my proof. This is sustained through my service in the U.S. military. Now, is this patriot enough? I'm not ashamed to walk around anymore. Before I felt inhibited. People look at me strange. And dare to question me, my loyalty to this country. I don't look American enough. Now, last I read the U.S. Constitution, we the people, we are all the same. We are equal. Not this, you are more superior, you are not. We are all the same. We all have, even I have some mindless prejudice sometimes that I caught myself. Oh, I don't like the way you dress, it's not the same. But you know, prejudice is hate. And that hate, it can be changed. We are human. You know, we need to be kinder, gentler to one another, because we are all the same. We are one human being on this earth.
Again, this is someone who would have to be now as a second-class citizen because he's apparently not white. You know, the thing is about this too. The reason this is so stupid is because the idea of like deciding if someone is if it's okay to stop them and ask them for their papers, like, oh, it's just those that look like they don't belong. Well, what about all the white people that are also like I knew someone who had they had a friend who was Russian who was here illegally, right? He was white, but he wouldn't get stopped. Just the whole idea of being stopped and asked for your papers is just entirely un-American. And it's just not something that should be going on. But my real issue with all of this, though, is that the fact that, the law is not being followed, that there are people, the family was just snatched up and had their door broken in. There wasn't a warrant. All right. So they're going into people's homes, illegally. And then, they were all here illegally. They had work permits and what have you, and they're still being gathered up and then shipped to other countries. And then it's like, well, if we just get them out, then there's no due process. And in America, due process is one of those things that everybody's supposed to get, right? And that's what we should have, equal treatment under the law, and that's what we don't have right now, and that's the core issue, and the fact that you could have someone who's a war hero, right, someone who's served for the country, has literally the scars to prove it, and now they would be made to walk around and show their papers. It's insane to me. And all the people that claim to be on the the rule, oh, it's all about the law and everything else. I mean, again, the government is violating the law. So what do you have to say about that? Like, and it's blatant, it's obvious, and that's just what's going on. So yeah, I think someone's trolling, man. I put you in timeout. Sorry, that's just the way it is. Anyways, I guess that's what I had to say. Due process, Vosswell says due process is not a legal term. You might be misunderstanding that. I'm not referring to it as a legal term. Due process does not mean a day in court. It literally means that what legal process is you are due. Yeah, I mean we're talking about the same thing, right? Again, there's countless examples. There's countless examples of people that are here legally being shipped off. Again, how many it's happened to U.S. citizens. How many U.S. citizens need to be deported? U.S. citizens. How many of them? How many U.S. citizens, some of them children, need to be snatched up by masked men and taken to these detention facilities that are not following, that they don't have basic, these detention facilities don't have basic needs for a human. They're not places for them to shower. They're not places for them to use the bathroom. There's not places for basic sanitation. And then when senators, and this is codified in the law, and then when senators want to go visit to exercise their oversight of those facilities, go there, they're not being let in, so they can't see the conditions and how many people are being kept there. Like, it's one thing for people that are citizens, to not obey the law. It's an entirely different thing when the U.S. government is breaking the law, right? What is that? That's just anarchy. So an order of deportation from an executive judge is due process. Yeah. An executive judge is we're not talking about the same thing. This isn't an apples to apples comparison. And everyone in the U.S. Are supposed to have legal process. Yeah. Yes, a person with an order of deportation should be removed because they have been through the legal process. Yes, exactly. And that's just not what's happening. And again, if you want to choose to believe something, you can choose to believe it. And you could probably argue yourself into a way that makes you feel good about what you believe. But if you want to look at things objectively, you can see that what is going on is not okay. But again, if you come into this and you say, well, I have this preconceived notion, let me, and again, boss, if you want to have a specific conversation, let's have it. Looking through this through the lens of morality would get this discussion nowhere. Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily, well, yeah. I mean, we're not really looking at it. Anyways, I don't know, guys. I think that's what I had to say today. I think I've said it. Hold on. There's a lot of these cases are expedited removal. Well, yeah, I'm just going to switch over. We're going to stop talking about all this stuff and just move over to something else. That's all. I mean, I don't know that there's I've said what I had to say, and I don't know that there's really a lot of, I mean, if you guys want to talk about something, we can talk about something, yeah. Yeah, a lot of these people, though, there's been stays, and a lot of these people are here legally, boss, and they're being removed from the country. And I mean, that's what's happening. I don't know what else to say. Yeah. I think, yeah, you know what? Maybe we should end with something I think we can agree on, right? And actually, that we do agree that there should be laws. We do agree that there should be rules and what have you. And I think we also agree that the law should be followed, you know, and questioning your side, questioning if your side is doing the right thing, questioning if your side has the right opinion. As again, as I mentioned, you know, the shooting that whether you like it or not, police departments around the U.S. would say that it was a justified shooting, right? And I think a lot of people don't like it, but that's the situation that we have right now. Now, if we want to address that, try to change things or whatever, you know, yeah, I think we can all agree that deporting citizens is cringe. Yeah, well, dude, it's. I mean, I think here's the thing that people aren't getting, right? Here's the thing that people aren't getting. All right, if you have somebody who's like vaguely of Hispanic heritage, maybe Native American, black, right? Because you could be African. Apparently not white because we're okay. It's okay for those immigrants, you know. Like it again. That's entirely that's a racist. That's like institutional racism there. But if you have someone who right, maybe you adopt, right? Like I know people that have adopted kids who aren't white, right? Who are white families. You could have that kid. You could have that kid, walking home from school. You could have that kid working at Target, like what happened in Minneapolis, and they could get grabbed, tackled by agents, held on the ground, masked men who they don't know who the fuck they are, right? Because it's crazy that they're running around with masks on. Beat up because that's what's happening. They're literally beating these people up. They're putting them in chokeholds they're not supposed to, but they're actively getting pop shots in. They can throw them in a vehicle. They can take them to a detention facility. They can hold them for days, and then eventually they can just release them whenever they feel like it. Can you imagine if that's your kid? Can you imagine they're going to be fucking traumatized, right? And that's a U.S. citizen. That has happened. We know that has happened. And if you ask me how many U.S. citizens that's okay to happen to, the answer is fucking zero. And if you also ask me, from a moral grounds, should we be treating people this way? Obama, deported more people than any president before him. We weren't having this issue then. Why? Because of the inhumane and inhuman treatment that is going on right now. Again, at these facilities, the lack of being allowed to, for senators to and House representatives to be able to exercise oversight by seeing what the hell's going on. And every single time we get a glimpse into one of these immigration, we find that they're in inhumane facilities. And it's just not necessary. It is needless human suffering. And as a human myself, I don't think that we should be doing that to each other. And I think we should all be able to agree on that. I think we should. Some people don't care about their fellow man, and they think it's okay. They've othered people, and they think it's okay to treat people, however. I've had people, literal neo-Nazis commenting on some of my videos. I get it. Those people are just, too far gone or whatever. I'm not going to be able to reach them. But I think we can all agree on those things, and that the U.S. government should at least be following the law. I don't think that's crazy. I don't think that's a minimum that we can't strive for, and that we can't say, hey, this is at least at the minimum what we should be doing. So anyways, and yeah, if there's something you guys want to talk about, I know there'll be people that watch this afterwards. I probably should have said this at the beginning. Drop it in the comments if there's something you want to talk about, like maybe Voss Boss, maybe we look back at due process and what's actually going on, and I'd be down to take a look and chat about it, about what's going on. But anyways, for now, guys, we are going to, I think what I'm going to do actually, we got a minute. I'm waiting on some food. I'm going to eat, and then we're going to jump over to a new stream. So there's a few other things here that I had that in the chamber before we, yeah, here we go. Here's one. This one actually is from Fox News. It's a local Fox News. But it's actually some of what we're talking. It's one of the things I was mentioning earlier. And I'm just going to Google what the title is so it comes up. Pardon my caps lock. Yeah, here we go. Let's take a look.
Immigration attorneys are demanding ICE release a man who was arrested after agents used a battering ram to get inside his home in Minneapolis.
And as Fox 9 investigator Paul Bloom tells us tonight, the man's legal team says ICE did not have a judicial warrant when they broke down his door.
All right. So they didn't have a warrant whenever they broke down his door. Right. This could, again, think about this. This could be you. This could be someone you know. And so a lot of you are going to be like, well, it isn't someone I know. It wouldn't be someone I know because I don't know any immigrants. Try to have a little bit of empathy and understand that there's a lot of people that do, right?
Sunday morning, North Minneapolis.
Dude, that's a great procedure right there. That's definitely, I'm sure that's in a police manual somewhere about how exactly to shoot the pepper spray out of the window of your vehicle. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's in there somewhere.
An agitated crowd gathered.
Also, just a note, guys. There are 600 sworn police officers in Minneapolis. That's how big their entire police force is. Not working on any given day, total 600. There are over 3,000 Border Patrol agents there. That's insane.
Battered their way into the home of Garrison Gibson. While an Associated Press photographer captured the scenes outside.
Voss says, yeah, see, in this case, breaking into a private residence isn't legal without a warrant or probable cause. Yeah, Voss, and what I'm saying, man, and my point with all of this is that this is happening regularly. Hey, Mayor, thanks for helping her out, man. Hey, thanks for being a channel member. This stuff is happening regularly. The government, the U.S. federal government, people are saying, oh, all these immigrants should just obey the law. The federal government is not obeying the law, right? How are you going to be like, they should obey the law when they're breaking the law? That's just crazy, right? And all the people that, a lot of these people that are like right wing and everything, right? A lot of the people that are right wing and, you'll take my gun, pry it out of my cold, dead fucking body, right? Like a lot of people that are like that, right, are also about civil rights, and they're fine with them being violated. And that's the cognitive dissonance that I can't understand, it just is beyond me. Another thing, Zorro, what's up, Zorro? Well, I appreciate it. Thanks. Fun unicorn. Excellent. 600 local police officers. That was kind of a self-inflicted because they defended their own police force. Man, yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about that whole thing, I mean, that goes back to the very beginning of the video. I don't know if you were here for that, but we kind of walk through this, right? That, out of the 20, it ended up being 27, police departments at one point that were investigated for civil rights violation from the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Out of the 27 that were investigated, 22 they ended up that didn't pass, right? Like they found problems. And then they list the 5 down here. Austin, Texas didn't find civil rights, at least systemic ones, in Austin, Texas. I was like that. I thought that, I mean, out of anywhere in Texas, I was surprised anywhere in Texas passed, but Austin would make sense. It is one of the most liberal places in Texas. But people say that it's like the bad apple argument, and when you're talking about the bad apple argument, when 81% is what that works out to, had or violating people's civil rights, like civil rights too. This is like this is not excessive. It's just 101, right? Like this shouldn't be happening. So the bad apple argument is like, yeah, it doesn't fly. It doesn't pass the smell test.
Where's the warrant?
Defunded? Yeah, well, Voss Boss, they were in the process of like figuring out what to do with their police force, because because something needed to be done, right? There were systemic problems. They didn't have a problem before ICE came with the 600 officers, all right? So it's not like they had 600 and now there's 3,000. They didn't have problems before this. And remember that there were reforms, but then Trump stopped all of them. They froze all the reform work. Now, Minnesota is still working on reforming their police department, or Minneapolis, I'm sorry. You know, that's still happening, but I don't know that I don't know if there's currently, you know, oh, we don't have enough. A lot of those police officers quit, and a lot of them good. I mean, if they're going to quit because, you know, they think it's okay to kill citizens and to abuse people, then good. You know, you don't want those people policing anyways, right? Like, yeah. My brother is DHS, and he gave me the whole just follow the law and nothing will happen, which I agree is wild when, like you said, the government is corrupt. Yeah, SF right now. Yeah, exactly. And you know, the other thing too is like people have said like this has been rehashed, and I think we need to keep having this conversation because I think that the reason I want to keep having this conversation is because I know there are people that watch. There's you guys. Some of you agree with me. Some of you really disagree. But some of the people that disagree or are not sure or like, you know, I kind of agree, but I'm not really sure. We don't have all the information because there's so much noise going on. And like, I get it, you know? And so like a lot of people I haven't seen major news organizations point out that, you know, Customs and Border Patrol did their own, they asked for a third party nonprofit to look at, you know, their policies and procedures and review their cases. And they came back in February of 2013 saying, hey, you have officers that are standing in front of vehicles and using it as a justification to use lethal force, right? I didn't know that. I sure as hell didn't know that. Like, you know, so I imagine most of you guys didn't. And so when you hear about this stuff, you know, again, some people are just so far gone. My dad's like this, right? He's, you know, he sends me crazy AI, alien conspiracies and, you know, like Trump is Jesus stuff at the same time, right? Like I can't have a conversation with a guy, but I think a lot of us can. I think we can have a reasonable conversation. And it's like, again, you know, you look at this and you say, the guy was in front of the vehicle. She moved forward. He shot her. I get it. If that's all you know, I get how you could be convinced that like, hey, it seems like a pretty justified shooting. Then when you find out that, you know, apparently it's a habit of these guys to stand in front of vehicles and use that as justification for legal force. And then also if you're someone who has a little bit of idea of tactics, right? I'm a little bit more of one of those people, but most people don't know anything, you know, but if you think about it, standing in front of a vehicle where you can be ran over, especially if you've already been ran over once, not really something you want to do. Now, you know, but if you are looking for a justification to shoot somebody, maybe you stand just by the front corner. Yeah. And there's just a lot of stuff, you know. Nino, I'm not trying to say anybody was innocent. But, you know, again, when you see what ICE has been doing, you also understand why someone might be pretty terrified. You know what, guys? We can look up a few other things about what ICE has done. I can show you guys if you're unsure what I'm talking about. Nino, we've also gone through that quite a bit, and I said that you know, the proper thing to do is let a jury decide. You know. Yeah, the best part of the conversation is agreeing on the shared premise. Yeah. I mean, it's not a problem for 99 people if you just stay in your house. Exactly. Just never leave your house, which actually is going on in Minneapolis right now. And it's actually a problem for the local economy. It's not great. 30% of kids were out of school at least some days this week. The question is, why would you be in front of the vehicle or pull their door? Exactly. There's a better way to do it. It tactically, it makes no sense. But again, let's just, so these guys bust in someone's house, break down their door. They don't have a warrant.
Where is it? Can you put the guns down, though?
Gibson's family was documenting the unfolding immigration enforcement operation live on Facebook, demanding to see a signed judicial warrant to justify the arrest of the...
Guys, in a second, I'm going to show you a video of an ICE agent shooting someone on accident at point blank range. And that's the stupidity of some of the stuff that's going on. I'll probably show you the video. It was in California. I'll show you the video. It was in California, and I don't know what happened before, but the dude is sandwiched in between two vehicles. I don't think they're ICE vehicles. There's no identification on them, which is also a huge problem with ICE agents doing traffic type stops. None of their fucking vehicles are marked, man. And a lot of times people think it's road rage going on, right? But this dude, his airbags have deployed, his window's broken. There's a bunch of ICE agents around. His car is stuck. It's not going anywhere. There's a truck in front of him, literally on his car, like on under, over the top of his hood. And there's someone right up behind him, right? And this ICE agent is holding his gun, trying to get the door open, and he's struggling. He switches hands and goes to he's trying to unlock it, and he squeezes and he fucking shoots the dude at like point blank range. And I'm like 99% sure it's because he switched it to his offhand, and then he's trying to open the door while pointing a gun at this guy who is not armed and is not dangerous, and he shoots him. And you're like, this is the stupidest shooting in the world. And again, part of what I would argue is that if your officers are so incompetent and so poorly trained that they can't enforce these things safely, then maybe they shouldn't be doing it. And you know what? If you want to spend 6 months and train these guys so they actually know what the hell is going on a little bit, then maybe let them back out. Like, again, there's a lot of better ways to doing it, I think the best means, oh yeah, I'm sorry.
38-year-old.
To see a battering ram coming to the front door of your house with a 9-year-old inside is just terrifying.
Armed agents eventually handcuffed Gibson and escorted him out with a hoodie over his head. The only paperwork loved ones were shown. This administrative warrant with no apparent signature from a judge.
I mean, any American should be terrified by that because that is such an egregious violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Less than 24 hours later, Gibson's immigration attorney, Mark Prokesh, had filed this habeas petition in U.S. District Court demanding Gibson's immediate release from ICE custody.
As an attorney, as an officer of the court, I have faith in our legal system. Whether the administration is following the law is above my pay grade, but I believe in the courts.
According to the court filings, Gibson is a citizen of Liberia who was first ordered removed from the country more than 15 years ago. He has a drug conviction that has since been wiped off his record in Minnesota, as well as a handful of traffic violations. But the government has otherwise allowed him to stay in the United States under the supervision of ICE that included regular check-ins. In fact, Prokesh says he had a meeting with ICE just 2 weeks earlier, with another one on the books at the end of the month.
So I just want to point out, he had a meeting with ICE a couple of weeks before this. One of the other things that has been going on is that they keep arresting people that are following the rules. Even some of them, maybe they've been here illegally, but they,
And breaking.
The system is pretty jacked up. The system doesn't work incredibly well. But they'll have people that'll be checking in, and they apparently just use it as like, oh, we know this guy's here. Let's just go grab him. We're going to deport him now. And, that's it. It's just what it does. And this is why it's part of the reason why it's dangerous, because you also have to look at this from, you want to get to point A to point B, right? If you have people and they're checking in and they're doing what they're supposed to, and then you start snatching those people, and deporting them, what does that do? It makes people stop showing up, right? And then that's not good, right? We don't want, and so some of it too is like doing things that are illogical for the sake of media or whatever attention, to say that we got some numbers. There's got to be a level of concession first, so it doesn't come off as total delegitimization of the branch. Only people who already don't like ICE will be receptive. Well, thanks. Yeah, at this point, everybody hates ICE. And honestly, I think they're operating as a domestic terrorist organization. And what I mean by that is I think they're operating to intentionally inflict terror on civilians and U.S. citizens. And I think they're achieving that. I honestly think that's what they're doing. I think, again, if you look at the totality of what's going on, I think it's pretty hard to argue. If you don't want to believe that, I think you can also find, supporting info that would not lead you to feel that way. But I think for me, it's hard to unsee it, basically. Let's take a look at another one, and I'm just picking some clips that I've seen recently to kind of talk about this. There's one really good one. I don't even know if this is the right thing, but we'll see. Yeah, here it is. There's one that I saw. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I think it was Jose, and it started with a C or something like that. I'll tell you another story, and we'll find the video if we can. But I just watched it earlier today, and I've been watching this stuff all week. This is what I spent my week doing instead of making videos, by the way, because I think it's important. I think it's far more important than making videos about ESO. Unfortunately, unfortunately, we have to be doing this. But there was a guy. He's a U.S. citizen. Okay, he's with his wife, a U.S. citizen, and their child, their young child. I don't know how old she was, but she was a mini-me, right? And this was when they were in California, and the ICE was apparently conducting a raid at they were getting food at a small fast food restaurant right next door to a car wash that they were raiding. And Mexican guy, right? His wife, descent, his wife as well, or at least brown. I don't know. I didn't check their nationality. But looked like they could be Mexican. And I think they're eating in the vehicle. They just got their food and they're just kind of sitting in the vehicle. And his wife saw that there's police activity going on, right? There's something going on, or at least, some stuff is going on next door. And she's like, we should get out of here. Right. Which is a very healthy thing to think, like, let's get the hell out of here. So they pull out, I think it was in a Jeep. And they pull out, and apparently one of the guys had taken off running from the car wash, and he ran in front of their vehicle, and they had to slam on their brakes not to hit the dude. Right? Kind of crazy. The dude goes across, he's running across like 6 lanes of traffic, which again, the danger that this is part of how poorly these things are being conducted, that they're dangerous for everybody involved because they're not. Yeah. So it's needlessly endangering the public. It's not making us safer. Anyways, slams on his brakes, a unmarked, but apparently Border Patrol vehicle is somewhere behind him, pulls in front at some point and cuts him off and slams on his brakes. And he hit his brakes, but he wasn't able to stop in time, and they rear end him. Not horribly bad, but they rear end him. I would be worried with a child in the car. I wouldn't be super worried with adults. And they rear end him, and they like get out and they surround this car, guns drawn. And they're yelling at them, and it's the same stuff, right? You got 6 people yelling 6 different commands and what have you. And they don't know what's going on. Before they actually rear-ended them, they thought it was a road rage thing, right? Before they got out and they had guns drawn, right? He thought it was a road rage thing where the dude like pulled in front of him and brake checked him. Completely understandable, because that's what it seemed like to any, rational person. What's going on here? They ended up I believe arresting that guy. Don't quote me on that. I believe they arrest, right? Like, I think they took him in. U.S. citizen, okay? And it's the same story, right? They say the same story every time. Oh, they're obstructing. And it's like, dude was just trying to get the hell out of there. And there's video of all of this. It's crystal clear, guys. Video of all of this. Sometime later, weeks or months later, this is the house where, again, ICE shows up again. They treat the house like there's drug kingpins living there. They put explosives along the door. They put explosives along a window, and they blow open the door. It's basically like a I think it's like deck cord or something, but it along the entire length of the door. But it basically just like it's guaranteed to shear the door off, right? Blow open the door. The guy's not even there. It's just him. It's just his wife and his daughter. And it really seems like they did that just because they were pissed off at them, and because they were, and these are U.S. citizens. So they're essentially abusing U.S. citizens. Why? Because they didn't like them. There was also people, at that same incident, that this is the time where the Border Patrol kind of got stuck there. And and that a big enough crowd that they couldn't leave showed up. And that's the part where they also drove into the crowd aggressively, going like 20 miles an hour. A Border Patrol agent did that, which, someone, if it would have been in Texas, maybe someone would have pulled out a gun and shot him, and that would have been pretty justified. A lot faster than Renee Good was going, I'll tell you that. And then another unmarked Border Patrol agent, moves forward into a group of people that are walking across the sidewalk, people just trying to leave the area. And, somebody like, hey dude, slammed the hood of his car, was like, hey dude, what the hell, right? What the fuck? I've done that about 1,000 times as a cyclist. And, they tackled the dude, beat him up, took him in, left him in, in custody for several days, 72 hours, 62 hours, something like that. And then let him go. And that's the thing. They keep doing all this stuff punitively and then not charging anybody. And it's like, if it's about law and order and someone did something wrong, then why aren't they being charged? Right. And the answer is they didn't do anything wrong. And the answer is these guys are acting like thugs. They're beating people up, throwing them in vehicles, doing things intentionally just to be cruel. And so what do you do if you're a citizen and you're brown and you see ICE coming, man? Even if you're a legal citizen, what's going to happen? Like, if you're lucky, maybe nothing. If you're not lucky, they might beat the shit out of you just because, and this is the country we're living in. And then people are like, yeah, this is great. What's going on? It's crazy. Knight, I think showing more stuff ICE has done is going to be all too convincing given stated grievances on the other side. Did you hear about the journalist that applied for ICE? I did, Chaos. I did. Voswell says there's got to be a level of concession first, so it doesn't come off as total delegitimization of the branch. Okay, yeah, only people that already don't like ICE will be receptive. I didn't read your previous comment, Voswell, so now I'm kind of understanding where you're coming from. Yeah, having the same explosive response. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what to do. I'm with you. I would like to, people don't know though, man. That's the thing. That's the thing that a lot of people don't know. So I'm just trying to make sure people know what's going on. And I've spent a great deal of time finding these things and looking into this to be able to present it. So I think that is the service I'm offering right now. Again, I'm not trying to, I don't think I'm going to convince a lot of people that already have made up their mind. But I just want people to know. And a big part of this, guys, is like ways you can do something, right? There's a lot of different ways. I'm not the person to ask, to be honest with you. But having conversations when you can with people and the reason, Voss, a big part of the reason I'm arguing that U.S. citizens is because I know a lot of people don't care that non-U.S. citizens are being treated horribly. I know a lot of people just aren't going to care. And that's just an unfortunate fact. And so that is why I'm choosing these things versus other things, because while I might care, I know that some people just won't.
Moving forward.
So, David, tell me what you found when you looked into shootings.
Oh, my God. What are the legal options? Mishi asks, what are the legal options for people wronged by these federal agents? Basically nothing. And that is a huge problem. And it's also, for the people that are with me on this, that think all this stuff is horribly wrong and messed up and it shouldn't be happening in the US. The police get away with the same stuff. The normal police, that's why I was talking about that earlier. And because of qualified immunity, because of police unions and, a couple of other things too, but those are the main ones. Basically nothing ever happens to these people that are doing what's wrong. And the only way currently to fix this problem right now is to replace the people in Congress. That's not even me advocating for that. That's just me telling you the facts. The only way to solve it right now is to replace the people in Congress. That's it. And probably what also needs to happen is probably Trump needs to be impeached again and actually removed from office. Because, a big part of the problem, and also guys, I have insight into some of this stuff because I spent a great deal of time looking into it. And I have friends that from all over the country, because I've lived a bunch of different places. I have friends that work for the Social Security office. I have friends that, work in the Defense Department. I have friends that work in various different places, and the level of incompetence and corruption that's going on is causing a lot of problems greater than like within the government. And the only way that's the only way to like solve this problem,
Involving immigration officials, not just in Minnesota, but all across the country.
Yeah, nationwide, Chris, since July, we've seen at least 14 incidents in which federal immigration officers, either with ICE or the Border Patrol, have fired their weapons at people in cars. The point here, Chris, is that what happened in the killing of Renee Good fits a very clear, overwhelmingly clear pattern. And that pattern applies not only to the details of the incidents themselves, the shootings, what happens in the field, but also applies to what happens after in terms of how DHS and other federal government agencies handle the case. I want to focus on that second part for the purpose of this conversation, because what happened in the Renee Good case is what has happened in every single one of these other incidents, which is that DHS very quickly makes public claims accusing the people the people who were shot at of weaponizing their vehicle.
I think it's Carlos Jimenez. I think I said something else. I think this is the person I was talking about earlier.
Attempting to drive their car at federal agents or their vehicles, to strike them, ram them, run them over, etc. But in most of these cases, Chris, those claims fall apart under scrutiny. Assaulting a federal officer is a very serious offense. And in only 4 of these cases have there been criminal charges against the people involved that actually stuck and led to ongoing criminal proceedings. In 4 other cases, those charges were either dismissed by a judge or proactively dropped by the DOJ for lack of evidence. In other cases, people were put directly into deportation proceedings without being criminally charged, even though DHS publicly claimed that they had committed this serious offense. And in 2 of the cases, I should mention, Chris, there were no criminal proceedings because the shooting was fatal. That's the killing of Renee Good in Minneapolis, of course, and the other is a case in the Chicago area, the death of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez. Now, Chris,
they're going to show in a second. He's going to show the officer that like accidentally discharged his firearm and shot somebody. Most of the country voted for this to happen. Nino, I don't. I mean, I would be surprised. I would be surprised if most of the country, if they would say, maybe they did, but I don't know if they would say that they voted for the illegal things, the government to violate the law, right? I don't know if most people voted for this. I don't know if they would say that. And in fact, I would say they would probably say no, we should uphold the law. And I'm just pointing out, Boss, I'm going to be honest, man. I'm not as good. Like I know vaguely, I've heard of the Mountain Bailey, but I'm not well versed in rhetorical arguments, man. I think yeah. So I appreciate what you're saying. I'll have to reread that later and see if I can understand it. But I don't even know what that is off the top of my head. I think if I thought about it long enough, I could define it. But like right now I can't. I certainly appreciate what you're saying. I'm not that educated, man. Yeah, and then, Mishi, no, they didn't. It's the Electoral College. The popular vote isn't for this, and now that this is in action, it's wildly unpopular. Wildly unpopular where? Because in Texas, it's very popular here. Yeah. I mean, it just depends where you're at, No, I mean, I don't, Nino, I think a lot of people, I know people that I consider to be kind people. I know people that volunteer their time to those who are less fortunate, who maybe are retired but are like working jobs that are like helping their community, et cetera, et cetera. And these people still are supportive of the current administration and what's going on right now. And I can't comprehend that, honestly. Like I can't square that circle. But I think that a lot of them don't know. And so again, part of the reason, to your point, Boss, that I'm showing this stuff is because I want people to know. And I want you guys to know so that if you need to, you can point to something and be like, hey, here's an example. Here's what's going on. Here's what the government doing. Because again, I would argue that, people, in the US, like we break laws. That happens, right? It's hard to drive without breaking laws, honestly. Right? That stuff happens. And that's one thing. But when the US government is actively breaking the law, ignoring judges' orders and not giving people due process, sending U.S. citizens outside of the country, abusing and violating citizens' rights, I don't think that stuff is popular. And it's my hope. I don't know. It's my hope that by just addressing this stuff and making sure people are aware of it, that some number that weren't aware of it will now be aware of it and might change how they feel about things. Boss says, Trump unambiguously ran on mass deportations and won the popular vote. I do think that some of the people might feel icky with what that entails, but they definitely voted for it. If they voted for this, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That is what is so scary too about all this stuff. And especially with like the Greenland stuff, like Trump trying to actively threatening to invade our ally. And essentially that would destroy NATO and would bring us a huge step closer to World War III, more so than we have been since World War II. And that's pretty scary. And so again, I'm just trying in the best way possible to help educate people, to help have this discussion, because it's not good. And not good is an understatement. And what I don't want to see is the needless suffering that is happening. And if this stuff continues to happen, it's going to get far, far worse. Far, far worse than anybody understands. And you know what? I'm going to be just fine. Chances are I'll be just fine, but I'm concerned for everybody around me, Yeah. People like Trump for true reason. He wanted to, a lot of people are brainwashed by what is going on. Drain the swamp, but Trump is the swamp. And then, deporting illegals. Yeah. I mean, Trump is the swamp. I mean, he's the most corrupt president we've had, ever. He's currently doing one of those things. Some people are okay with something until it happens to them. Yeah, absolutely chaos. That is definitely, Revenant. What's going on? I don't think the government is breaking the law. Also, well, we've gone over it. They are. I mean, we've shown proof earlier. If you just rewind, we've gone through proof of where they're breaking the law. Also, everyone who is outraged by Renee Good's death, celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. The ICE agent I seen had to get treated for internal bleeding. I don't fucking believe that. He didn't. There's no way. There's no way he got hit. No way. The rest of it, whatever. We've already talked about all that stuff for evidence. So if you want to check the beginning of the video, we actually started with that stuff, man. I talked about it at length. I won't go back into it. I think a lot of people just don't know what is happening. They get stuck in the circle of personal worldview, and any challenge to the view is received as an attack on them personally. Yeah. It's their identity, and they don't want to really give that up. No, America's been trying to buy Greenland for like 100 years. So has everyone else. But we have all the access to Greenland that we want. If we want to put, we have bases that we abandoned there. If we want bases, we can go there. If we want mineral rights, we can get them. There's nothing that there's no sense to it at all, unless there's some corrupt intent where Trump is going to try to like do something for his family or friends or allies or something. Yeah. But I mean, it's the same thing with Maduro, right? It's like, oh, Maduro's a bad guy. He's a drug dealer or whatever. And it's like, well, that might be true, but what about, I don't want to say the wrong country. I think it was, hold on. I'm pretty sure I remember, but let me check. One moment. But Trump just like pardoned, just pardons another, ex-president of another country who was a drug lord, So it's like, it's not about that, right? Like there's some cognitive dissonance you have to have.
I did hear from DHS on this. They told me that the pattern is not the use of deadly force by law enforcement, but rather the pattern is more civilians using their cars to try and run over agents. But when I asked them about specific cases, they just recycled the same statements that they made in the first place when those incidents first happened, accusing people of weaponizing their vehicles, even though in many cases that claim was directly contravened by video evidence. That includes, for example, the case of Carlitos Ricardo Parias here in LA. There's body cam footage that I hope we can play for our viewers at least briefly.
All right, guys, if you at all know anything about guns, watch how fucking stupid this is.
As you can see here, the Border Patrol agent reaches into the vehicle, switches his gun hand to his left hand, and shortly after fires the weapon. He then exclaims, seemingly in surprise, and as you can see from this body cam video, the car is not moving when this happens, nor are there any federal agents in
accidental shooting because the dude was holding a gun in his left hand.
In front of the vehicle. Nevertheless, DHS said at the time and maintains to this day that this person tried to weaponize his vehicle against agents. The last thing, real quick, Chris, this is one of the cases that was dismissed by a judge for mishandling of evidence and violations, according to the judge, of the subject's due process rights, including the fact that that body cam video you just watched wasn't turned over by the government until almost 6 weeks after the incident, which was 5 days after the discovery deadline set by the court, Chris.
Wow, some great reporting there. So,
yeah, just the height of stupidity. Daedric says, just remember, it's a three-way split between Dems, Republicans, and people checked out. Yeah, the people checked out is a lot. The number of people that I talk to that just can't be bothered to get, and I understand, it's just it's intentional. It's by design, that are just checked out about all the crazy shit that's going on. While there's a large population that enthusiastically support Trump, there's still that group that's checked out. Yeah. The Charlie Kirk thing is we're not getting into that today. It's just outside of the scope and whatever. I would say again, like in regards to that and stuff like it, there's a lot of people on both sides, that if you want to decide what you want to believe and then find things to support that belief, you can do that. It's the internet. Like the world is large enough, you're going to have no problems doing that. And you're going to have no problems living in an echo chamber. And while like certainly I think that this happens more with, right-leaning people, that's been my observation. I have family members that are like that. I also know of people and have family members who are on the left that are also equally like uninformed and don't really understand what's going on either, but they have the opposite view. And it's kind of scary to me, to be totally honest with you, because both groups will fall for conspiracy theories that are detached from reality. And again, I think what we ideally want to do is try to look at this stuff in a way that's like, what is actually going on, and having an open mind and having the mind of like, I'm willing for my mind to be changed, I don't know about that. It was a global trend on Twitter. But if we buy it, then no one else can put anything there unless we say so. Oh, you're talking about Greenland. And we have more minerals. That's an insane thing. We would be giving up NATO, Nino. Why would we do that? Why would we actively lose allies and make Russia and China stronger? Why would we do that? We have, what do we have, like 100,000 troops still in Europe? We have those bases because we want to be able to strategically do things in different parts of the world. If they kick us out, we don't have those bases anymore. We now have any access we want to Greenland, and we can still have bases in Europe. There's no reason to invade. Invading Greenland is one of the stupidest things. It's just stupid. It's just dumb. There's no other way to say it. And it's absolutely insane threatening to invade our ally. Why would we do that? why on earth would we do that? They've said that they would give us anything that we want. Just name it. It's absolutely stupid, and it would push us closer towards World War III than we've ever been since World War II. Yeah. Nani says, and this is in regard to Charlie Kirk, no one that mattered said anything negative. It was trending because right wing was trying to make it viral. Well, I think Nani's point there is that, yeah, if you want, like right now, one video I didn't show is that there's some crazy dude who's like a neo-Nazi or just generally racist. I don't know. In front of an ICE in Minneapolis, and it's literally just him. And he's saying, yeah, we killed you. We'll kill more of you and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to show that guy. I don't think he represents a broad swath of the country. He's just a lunatic. But if I wanted to say, oh, if I wanted to paint all right-wing people like that, I could do that, Or if you wanted to think all right-wing people are like that, you can do that, And that's not what I'm trying to do here. That's not what I want to do. That's not what I'm about. Yeah. I'm just kind of trying to catch it up. Yeah, I mean the Charlie Kirk thing again. I'm not. You guys can have that conversation. I'm not going to have it right now. Yeah. I'm an independent. I'm not checked out, but I don't agree with either party. I mean, Mishi, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting that off at a random place. Mashiru, maybe I'm not. You tell me. I forgot where I should cut it off. But yeah, I mean, I'm unhappy with what a lot of different people are doing. That's why I try to stick to it's not about, because I don't care. I'm not on a team. I care about issues. That's what I care about. That's the conversations I want to have, because we can agree on those, and if we can agree on them, we can make the politicians do what we want them to. That's all I want. Dietrich says the unfortunate thing is with the internet is that the fringe opinions get a ton of volume. Yeah. If 1% of Dems or Republicans are batshit insane, that's still millions of people that can say some wild opinions. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I'm going to be honest, because I've said this before, and I'm still not even, it's not even me being about his team, but Bernie Sanders has been saying the same shit for like 40 years. And I just love that it's someone who's principled. John McCain, was it McCain? Yeah, John McCain, same deal. It's like it's someone who had principles, right? And who voted based on what he felt is principle. He voted based on like a conscience and like trying to do the right thing. So it's like we lost more than we thought when John McCain died, more than I think most people thought and realized. Because he was someone who had principles and values and actually, cared about him. Most people are not cheering for the death of either side, but even a small minority can make it seem like they're all crazy. Yeah, for sure. Because and a great point too. Like you don't see a lot of people. I mean, I don't see really any broad swaths of the right Trump supporters or whatever going like, yeah, fucking Renee Good, she got what she deserved, or anything like that. You don't see that. I don't think that's what's happening. And no one's trying to paint what's happening, even though there are some people. Iowa Hawkeyes, what's going on? Release the files. Yes. We'd love to see the Epstein files. I mean, clearly there's something there. That could be a topic for another day. Yeah. I don't know. Guys, it's 8:00. I said I would switch over to the other stream and talk about ESO. Dinner was ready a while ago. Let me go. Let me put you guys on a 5-minute break. I'm going to go eat some dinner. I appreciate everybody who just tuned in for this, and I appreciate all of you guys having conversations. And when I say that, I appreciate the people with other opinions, okay? I appreciate everybody, but I really appreciate those of you guys with other opinions who we can come, we can have a conversation, we can talk about this stuff and what have you. Nani says, come tank with me. Do you need a tank? It's right now. I got to eat, though. Can I get 5? I'll come tank with you. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up ESO, and then I'm gonna go AFK for a second, and I'll be right back. But again, I really appreciate you guys tuning in, having this conversation. I just think we need to have more of these conversations, and so it's probably something we're just gonna do moving forward. So Yeah. All right, guys. I'll be right back, and I appreciate everybody for tuned in. If that's all you tuned in for, we'll catch you later. All right, I'll be back in 5, and then we'll jump over. I got 30 minutes or 30 seconds. We got 30 minutes? Oh, okay, cool. So we can jump in and do some little theory crafting. Perfect. Okay, guys, I'll be right back. Indeed. All right, guys, give me just a second. We'll get this thing rolling. How's that looking? All right, I think we're on PTS. Hold on, let's see. Hell yeah, we are. Those cool animations. I snorted. I'm so happy. Excuse me, I just downed some amazing pizza. It was absolutely amazing. My wife makes pizza. She likes to cook. Let me kick you guys over to the new stream. And we'll pick up there, guys. All right, so I'm going to kick you over on YouTube, and we'll be right back.